When you think about marketing and branding, you probably think about advertising and communication from big companies. However, how we communicate ourselves, our jobs, our experiences are also a part of marketing and personal branding. So today, we are shifting our focus to this area, personal branding. And my guest today is Ella Orr. Ella is the owner of Much More Social. She's an expert on social media strategy and personal branding. I hope you enjoyed the chat. Thank you for listening.
Welcome to the marketing meeting, Ella.
Hello, it's lovely to be a guest on your podcast. We met through LinkedIn, and now here we are.
Yeah, and we met through our friend John, and that's the power of personal branding and LinkedIn, right? And which we are going to talk about a lot today. Yes. I'm really grateful that John introduced me to you. I know that you have an interesting background, and then you didn't start in social media at all. Can you please tell me a bit about your background and story? How did you end up in social media and personal branding?
Well, actually, I was a teacher. When I left college, I did a teaching qualification, and I went straight into teaching, and I was teaching in a primary school. I taught in primary education over here in the UK for about 13 years. And then I left that and went into other education sort of based roles. But basically, my journey through education as a teacher and as a tutor took me to teaching adults. So I ended up teaching in adult education and community education. But then about 5 years ago it was now, I think, you reach a certain stage in your working life, but also when you get to a certain age, where you think, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? And I thought, or my working life, and I thought, no, I don't. I want to do something different. And the thing was as well, it was that I was also going through a bit of sort of like a mental health kind of crisis, because my mum was very ill at the time, and she eventually sort of passed away. But it sort of made me, my mum kind of inspired me to think that, life is so short that, you've got to do what you got to do stuff that you feel happy about doing. You've got to be happy in as many parts of your life as possible. And if I could make a change in terms of my work, that would. I mean, I know it was my work that was kind of making me feel very, very low at that point. So I was just sitting scrolling on my phone one day, feeling, really quite low, and thinking, what can I do? What can I do? And I don't want to do anything in relation to teaching. And I was just sitting there, and I thought, oh, I like going on social media. Is there anything that you can do in that kind of job? And I came across a course. It was a course aimed at parents, at mums, and I'm a mum. And I just did. They accepted me, and that's it. That's how I ended up working in social media marketing.
Wow, it's great to hear about your story, because I also lost my dad very early in my life. And that's how I think we come to a conclusion that life is short, and then we should be doing things that we really enjoy in life. I'm really happy to hear about your story too. So yeah, here we are, and you're like 3 hours ahead of me, and then we are chatting about personal branding today.
Yes, we are indeed.
It's something, I mean, like I'm surprised most of the time that many people don't think that they should be doing personal branding, or they are too shy, or they don't know where to start, how to start. Even the best marketers, they don't know how to do the personal branding for themselves, although they know a lot about marketing. So for people who is not there yet, or who's not visible on social media other than sharing some personal family stuff, what do you recommend? Where should they start? How should they start this journey?
Well, first of all, I think they need to have an open mind about personal branding. You'll hear a lot of arguments, a lot of disagreements about it's a kind of marketing fad. It's a marketing trend. It's something that marketers have created, and for people who are sort of like working in real business, that it's kind of it's just another sort of bandwagon, as we say, to sort of jump on. But so I would say, first of all, you need to sort of like have an open mind about what having a personal brand means and why it matters, in this very crowded world online. It really, it's so, and especially, I think that the pandemic has, COVID pandemic has taught us that as well, that sort of like you can have your presence in person and your personality and your talents and your skills and your expertise and everything else, and you go out and you talk to people, you meet them in everyday circumstances, either through work situations, meetings, networking and so forth, and you meet them when you're talking about your work outside of work. But with the way, say, that especially the pandemic has shown us, if you haven't got an online presence, and you're competing not just locally, nationally, you're competing globally with other people, because it's so easy to access services and products from people across the four corners of the globe now. If you haven't got a kind of identifiable personal brand, which is, so one thing that makes you special is your uniqueness, your individuality, your personality, and obviously because it's personal, it's personality, people feel quite shy about it. They think they don't want people to know about them as a person. They'd rather talk about their brand, they'd rather talk about their business, and in a way perhaps hide behind that a little bit. But as we know, even as brilliant and as amazing as your business and your brand will be, we live in a world now where people want to know about the people behind the business and the brand. They want to know about the CEOs, they want to know about the senior management, they want to know about influential people connected with the brand, they want to know about celebrities that endorse the brand and everything else. So yeah, I think that's why personal branding is so important. But I think, and as individuals, even as solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, it's not just something that we think about when we think of, Branson and Elon Musk and all of those kinds of people, or even Oprah or whoever it is. When you're thinking, personal branding applies to anybody who wants to get their business known, business seen. Mm-hmm. So do you want me to go on a little bit about where to start with that?
Yeah, please, because you said that being open is the first thing that we need to adopt, right? And then after that, if we are open, if we understand that we need personal branding, so how to start then?
Yes, yeah. So as I say, I think, once you've kind of said, right, okay, because you do have to get quite introspective. And that's why I wanted to say all that thing about having an experimental mindset and being open. Because the first thing you've got to do is you've got to think about what you're good at. You've got to think about what I call your superpowers. It's what makes you, as I say, special, what makes you unique, what your talents are. And you've got to sort of go, right, I mean, the way that I did it, and the reason why I'm so passionate about personal branding is because that's how I started to stand out in terms of social media marketing. The world is crowded out with people who do social media marketing. So how was I going to sort of stand out? And I think the thing is to sort of think about what your say your strengths, your talents are, write them all down, just do what I call like a brain dump or a thought shower, whatever you want to call it. You get it all down on paper. And this is going to take a while. It's not like a 5-minute thing. You have to kind of let it all out, and it's going to take days. It may take weeks. And you need brain space for it as well. But then the other thing to do is to ask your friends, not so much your family, because they're going to have a different opinion.
Biased.
Yes, or be hypercritical. But you want to ask your friends, and you want to ask people you've worked with, your associates, colleagues, ever. Ask them to sort of feed into this kind of big this sort of big melting pot of ideas, because we don't see ourselves in the same way that other people see us, and we often don't see what our strengths are and what our expertise is. And it's the people who are receiving that can articulate, I liked working with you because why I chose to work with you, or why I chose to collaborate with you, or why I chose to interview you on a podcast, or whatever it is. Ask people, and ask the people that you trust. And you don't have to ask everybody. Not everyone will have time. Not everyone will be able to find the words to describe things about you. But once you've got all of that, that's when you then start to look at things which maybe are a bit bland and a bit what I call vanilla, and get rid of all of that, because what you want to be left with is the gold. You want to be left with the treasure. Okay? So from there, that's when you can start to identify. You could kind of group those maybe into pillars. And we talk in social media about pillar content. So you've got to come up with 3 or 4 pillar themes that identify you as an individual in terms of your talents, your expertise, your experience, but also what you value, what you think is valuable your values in terms of running a business, but also personality as well.
You really gave like a really simple method of finding our superpowers, which is like, first of all, writing everything that we have in our mind about ourselves, then asking others, like it's not only our family, but also friends, maybe some partners from the job and so on. And then it's like at the end of the day, you put it quite well, that it's like a big melting pot of ideas about yourself, which is fun actually. It's all about you at the end of the day, and it's just enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
And then, but once the big melting pot of ideas are there, we need to, take the gold out of it and then put it into pillars. Yes. So about the pillars, what type of pillars you mentioned? I mean, like, so that people can understand what we mean about pillars.
So you want them to kind of be distinct, because when you're thinking about your content, for example, on social media, we talk about pillar, pillar content on there in terms of maybe what your brand has, your business has, what services you offer, all of that kind of thing. But you also want to do that, in terms of your personality, your characteristics. So I would say, try to think about sort of 3. I mean, it could be that one of them is related to a pastime that you're interested in. So, a lot of people who are in business maybe play a particular sport, or they sing, or they belong to amateur dramatics, or they do a lot of volunteering. For some people, that kind of service to others, unpaid service to others, is a big thing that drives them outside of work. So that could be one thing. Another thing could be something just in relation, as I say, to your kind of character, whether you're extrovert, introvert. Are you a people person? Are you somebody who quietly likes to get on with things? Are you methodical? Are you a bit kind of reactive? Sort of sometimes you want to know the personality of the person in terms of, are they somebody who's spontaneous and will kind of, you can sort of come across, you can say and suggest an idea to them and they'll go, oh yeah, no, we can do this and this. Or somebody who might say, no, hold on a minute, you can't do that. Think about this, think about that, So those kind of characteristics, I would say a personality pillar would be helpful. This is good. We've got a personality pillar. We've got a kind of outside of your work life sort of pillar, maybe. And then, think about another pillar. And it could be something that is directly related to, your business, in terms of, why you started your business, what motivated you to start your business. Was it something you always wanted to do? Did you go through an education that kind of led to that?
When I want to categorize anything, I write every topic into like on a post-it. Well, yeah, it's a bit of a waste of paper, I know. But when you write things on a post-it and you try to, move them around on a table or on a wall, then it makes easier to put it into pillars. So I agree, like one pillar. Yeah,
that's a perfect idea. And funnily enough, that was the way I did it when I first did mine. I just had them on all these post-it notes. And I remember I wasn't in my office then. I used to work downstairs on the dining table. But I remember sitting there with all these bits of paper surrounded by me and thinking, oh God, what am I going to do with all of these? But that's a very good suggestion, because it means that you can physically discard the ones that you can think, no, that isn't how I want to be known.
Yeah.
These are the ones I want to be known by. Yeah, brilliant idea.
Yeah. So once we have the pillars, and which platform? I mean, it comes to the question of which platform are we gonna, communicate, right? So we are open. We did our personal tests, and we have the pillars. Then we decide on the platform, right?
Yeah, of course, and that is exactly the same as you as a brand strategist know that you've got to be where your audience is. You've got to know your target audience. You've got to know your target audience. You've got to know who your ideal client is, and you've got to know where it is they're going to spend their time in terms of marketing channels. So it could well be, yes, social media, but not everybody is going to be on social media, and you may well be having to make sure that you really use your website as a marketing channel, push your personal brand, or and email marketing, or whatever kind of marketing it is that you want to use. But obviously, I mean, I specialize, I'm an expert in social media marketing, so I would say for many people it is going to be LinkedIn. Kind of clients, and who your listeners are to this podcast, it's going to be LinkedIn, but it could well be Instagram. It could well be that a lot of your audience will be on Twitter. There's quite a lot of synergy between Twitter and LinkedIn. I think and especially in terms of social audio now as well. Twitter Spaces is being used a lot. And people are using Clubhouse, which I'm quite active on. But also I know that this week LinkedIn have just introduced their audio platform.
Have you tried it, by the way?
I haven't tried it yet. No, I haven't had time. But I'm
and it's only this week, right? Yeah. Okay.
I'm desperate to get onto an audio space on LinkedIn. But just be aware about where your audience is, but also you've got to be comfortable about creating content on that platform. So some people obviously were building very good personal brands on TikTok, and TikTok, as we know now, it's not all about the dancing and the pointing and everything else. There are people who are just going on there and recording sort of 60 seconds about thought leadership. So it could be just be aware that you have to come across as real, and dare I use that word, authentically as possible on the social media platform. So you've got to feel comfortable with it, and make sure it's going to show you in your best light, obviously, because every time you show up, you want your personal brand to be absolutely clear, defined, strong, so that you're always putting those positive messages out to the audience that you want to attract.
Yeah, and then you mentioned about thought leadership, and which takes us to the next point, which is like finding your own voice, right? So who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, and which channel that you need to communicate, and which channel you can put your resources, time, and mind as well. So how do we find our voice, and how can we convey our message to those audiences?
I think again, the clue is in the words. It's your thoughts, and you need to record them somewhere. And again, sort of some people say, "Oh, I haven't got time to record my thoughts," but no, the tech is all there now. It's all at our fingertips, and we many of us have voice recorders on our phones. But if you want to use an app, that's fine. But anything that you feel strongly about, if you want to stand out, and that's the whole thing about your personal brand, it's going to be a tremendous way, a wonderful way for you to stand out from your competition and to stand out from the crowd. And I mean, I work with, for example, people in regulated professions, sort of like financial advisors, those kinds of industries where people maybe find it difficult to make their voice heard. But, sadly, financial advisors, accountants, whatever, there's a lot of them. there's millions of them. So you've got to find your voice. You've got to find your way to talk about financial advice, pensions, tax, whatever it is, in your own way.
For thought leadership, although I love the quote, it might sound frightening for people because there's the word thought and it's leadership. As you said, it can be like you need to require like PhD or so on. Would it help to categorize the things that we want to talk first of all, like the things that we are experts on first? Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I mean, you'll know. I mean, first of all, you I mean, and again, this is all the kind of research that any business or brand worth their salt will do. You'll research, won't you? You'll find out what it is that your clients' pain points, what their the questions that they always ask. What are the questions that your clients always ask you, or potential clients always ask you? When they make an inquiry. So it could be an inquiry around, how do you work? What's, what will you give to me? What will I get for you from you? How much does it cost? What's the kind of, the structure, the arrangement in terms of the way that, you work with people. There'll be all kinds of things like that. But in that's the sort of like the practical side. But, there's also going to be an awful lot about why it is that you deliver your services, why it is you believe in that kind of approach. And that's where the thought stuff comes in. It doesn't have to be anything, as I say, that I think a lot of people in professions, as part of their professional development, they do read articles, don't they? We read articles, we keep up to date with the news, we keep up to date with the trends. And if you're offering the best service to your customers and your clients, then you want to be making sure that you're on point in terms of, what are the latest products, what's the latest ideas, all that kind of thing. You feed all of that into how it is that you actually help and serve your client. That's what I believe thought leadership is.
Yeah. And I find it also useful to, as I mentioned, segmenting. For example, for myself, I talk about branding, marketing, but on the side, I love reading books. I read an hour every day, which may sound to people, okay, it's not related to business or whatever. Why would there be a category for that in personal branding? But actually there is, because I can talk about marketing, I can talk about digital marketing, but I can also talk about books on the site, right? All these, and once we know the topics that we want to talk about, the general themes, it makes it easier to create ideas around it, right?
It does. And I think the thing is, you have to start. That's the thing, you have to start. So, so start with what you know, start with the stuff that you feel comfortable with. And if you've been working in a profession, 5, 10, 15 years, you'll have a certain amount of experience behind you, and you'll have talked to people. You'll have talked to people in your industry. You'll have talked to, as I say, your customers, your clients. You'll have talked to your peers. You'll have been, you'd have been reading things and listening to podcasts, watching videos, all sorts. You'd have been consuming this content yourself. So, you can build all of that into your own content then. And as you say, your part of your content could be that, you talk about a book that you have learned something from, or, a client, that you learned, something you learned from working with a particular client. Or it could be that, you attended some training, you attended a course. What did you learn from it? And you're sharing that with your audience. So it shows, I'm bound to say that lifelong learning to me is absolutely key to being human. The moment we stop learning about anything, it's almost like we've switched our brains off. So I really believe that, we've got these wonderful organs inside our head, fill them with as much information, ideas, opinions, and listen to other people's opinions as well, even if you don't like them.
Once we start posting our own content, is there any other way that we can organically reach the right audiences? Do you have any suggestions on that? So we are posting we are already on social, we are posting about the themes that we care about and we feel strong about. What else we can do to reach the correct audience?
Well, I'm bound to say, working in social media, that social media is social. So it's not just about your own posts. It's about going and commenting on other people's, reading other people's content. And again, this is this whole thing about social media in terms of who you follow. If you are connecting with everybody, you don't know whose content is going to be appearing in your feed necessarily. So be discerning. Put a bit of time into who you are connecting with. And it's, in the same practices on social media are the same as when you're in the real world, you're outside. You're not going to go and talk to everybody or, become friends with everybody or associate with everybody. You're going to be choosy, aren't you, about who you want to spend your time with, in the company of. And you do the same on social. So I would say when you start to connect with the right people or follow the right people, first of all, on LinkedIn, but the same on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, then you read their content and then go and engage. And then that way you can then comment, add value with your comments, and you start to become more visible, not only to that person, but also to that person's community, that person's audience. So I always say, LinkedIn and Instagram or social media, it's like networking.
Yeah.
So treat it in the same way as you would do in networking in real life. But definitely, posting is important, but engagement is important. And then once you've engaged with those people and start to build relationships with them, then you can start to think about talking to them more in the direct messages, and starting to build relationships, and have conversations with people who either you want to collaborate with, or you just want to get to know better professionally, or they could be people who you are looking to as your potential customers or clients.
What are the misconceptions about social media? I'm sure you have some thoughts around that.
I've written a few things down here.
Bring it on.
I think, a lot of people think it's very confusing. They think it's more difficult than it is, and that it's kind of, it's got to be, you've got to be on it all the time and all of that kind of thing. I would definitely say for 2022, there definitely seems to be a trend more to sort of posting less. Post less, but what you do post quality. Quality. So it's quality, not quantity. And I think if you can manage that, then it won't be so difficult and it won't be so confusing. And also, that you've got to be on every platform. No. I mean, I would say, choose, one or two platforms. I mean, our friend John would say, choose one and then have another. I mean, he may have sort of changed his mind a little bit from since that time, because he wrote that in his book. But, but it could be that, but say, don't feel that you've got, don't spread yourself so thinly, because then it does become overwhelming. And I think the other thing as well is this whole thing about, you've got to sort of do things to please the algorithm. And, and I've got to be posting video content. I've got to be posting polls on LinkedIn. I've got to be posting reels on
Please
Instagram.
Just
don't. You do what pleases. You've got to, if you're going to go on social media, it's got to be fit in with what the time that you can put into it, the time that you can engage as well and build on that. And also, remember, and I think a lot of business owners make a mistake with this as well, is they think that social, they don't think about where social media fits in the funnel. And to me, a lot of it is about brand awareness. It's that top level at the top of the funnel. So it's not going to convert into sales straight away. There's a processes that you have to go through before you get to that stage. But it's definitely good for building brand awareness, and it's definitely good for when you're then trying to hold on to your present customers and clients and ask them to sort of share good stuff about your brand. You can do so many sort of surveys and get feedback and whatever through social media. So I think top of the funnel, and then once they've converted and become loyal fans, social's really good for that. But I think it's, there's so much I could say about social media. It's a minefield.
Yeah, so I mean, so you mentioned about you don't need to post every day, you don't need to spend like 24 hours of your day, you don't need to just engage with people mindfully, just keep your connections fresh and to the audience that you want to reach.
Exactly.
Is there anything else?
Yeah. And, I would say, and think about why you're posting. Every time you create a piece of content, and however small it is, even if it's a tweet, a 280 character tweet, or it's a longer form piece of content on LinkedIn or an article or a newsletter or whatever, think about the value that you're putting into that. Think about who it is that you're speaking to when you're posting that piece of content. Imagine there is somebody on the other side of the screen reading it or watching it, or reading the blog post or whatever. Talk to your audience as if they are individuals, because I think then that's when you can start to really get focused on helping people to have trust in you. Because there's so much content out there. People want to feel that they're being spoken to as an individual. So don't just do blanket content, and whatever. The other thing I was going to mention as well is that I think that's one of the big things that's going to be for 2022 as well, is repurposing content. You don't have to keep coming up with new ideas. Go back, look at old posts that you posted a year ago, 18 months ago. There could well be evergreen content in there that you can then just give it a little bit of a tweak, update it a little bit. So I think there's so much that you can do. You don't have to keep constantly creating new content. And as soon as you get into a kind of cycle with that, you'll often find that you're thinking, oh yeah, right, this you've got a monthly kind of content plan that's almost kind of just evolved from out of your thoughts, your focus on your audience, your repurposed content, your books that you've read, your podcasts you've listened to. It does become easier. It does.
Yeah. And sometimes just sharing some personal notes about how you feel about yourself too. I mean, because LinkedIn, I really enjoy seeing human posts, like from their home, of my friends. I mean, what they did during the weekend. I know that LinkedIn sounds like a business platform only, but I really love how people spend their times during the weekend too. So maybe add that also.
I was going to say, I've noticed a lot of people doing these shout out posts regularly. So that every week they'll do a shout to one or two people, and that becomes regular content. They just post every week, and the idea of that is that obviously you've got your own content, then you've got a content idea, but you're also doing that wonderful thing on social media of shining a light on somebody else, putting somebody else in the spotlight and saying, hey, I met this really good person, and guess what? I think you should find out about them too. So I'm going to tell you about them. Yeah.
Ella, thanks so much for coming over and accepting my offer to be a guest on the show. Where can people find you? I know that you're a lot on LinkedIn. What's your account name? It's Ella Orr?
Ella Orr, it is. And if anybody wants to go and give my business page a follow, my company page a follow, it's Much More Social. That's the name of my business. I've also got a website, which is www.muchmoresocial.co.uk. But yeah, please do come and find me on LinkedIn as Ella Orr, and find me on Twitter as well, Ella Orr, Much More Social on Instagram, TikTok. I'm on there as well.
You did? You are? Yeah, okay. I'll check that out.
Yeah. And Clubhouse, if people are on Clubhouse or are aware of it, and like to listen social audio, then please come and find me on there. But yes, I'll be very, but please, if you come and connect with me, do let me know that you listen to Itta's podcast.
Thanks so much for that.